not done. Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And I say this before every pod. This one is special, but this one really is. It's a little bit different. We've had the theatre before, but this is for a true rugby legend. And the man who joins me today, I'm really excited to speak to because I think there are lots of stories to tell here. He's against the clock because he's a very busy man. It's the Edinburgh Festival for the length of August. He has got a run of a show here that I am excited to go and see. By the time you watch this, I might have been to see it. It's getting rave reviews. The Hastings brothers have been, and the Welsh rugby royalty, every single one that you can imagine has been to see it and loved it. So let's bring in the one and only Mr. Gareth J Bale to talk about his show, GRAV. Hello, sir.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
I'm absolutely delighted to have you. This is really exciting for me. So, Gareth, you're no stranger to Edinburgh. You've been here many, many times. What is it that keeps you coming back?
I love the city, and the festival is great. There's so much of a buzz about the place, but the people as well. You know, I always have a great welcome here, and always look forward to August. So, you know, after the last couple of years, it's just terrific to be back.
And bringing a show like this about a Welsh rugby legend, does it travel well?
Yeah, I mean, last time we were here, we sold out. You know, every single show was sold out, which was terrific. We've taken it to London, and we've also taken it to America, which, you know, isn't known really for its big rugby following, but it's gone down well everywhere. And I think that's because it's a universal story. Really, at the heart of it is a story about a boy and his the relationship that he has with his mum and dad.
And it's do I want to give too much away? I don't know. I mean, GRAV touched so many people in so many different ways. Got to live the probably most Welsh kids' dream of that era, to play in the Red of Wales and then to go on and play for the British Lions. But he was Welsh language champion. He was an actor, a presenter. He just seemed like somebody that was so full of life.
Yeah, and that's the great thing. That's why it makes such a great play. You know, sorry to be cynical about it, but you know, GRAV died at the age of 56, but he packed a lot into that time. A lot of it fantastic, you know, the rugby stories, the tales from the back of the bus, the people that he would have met, the places he would have gone. But also there's sadness there, you know, and the battle that he had with diabetes, for instance, you know, that is not something that you can shy away from. If you're going to do a play about a man, then you have to have sort of all the bumps as well as the happy times.
And those bumps could be hard to watch. How do GRAV's family and close friends, how do they feel about the play? How do they feel about it going on the road and sort of spreading the word?
Yeah, I'm sure it was very tough, especially at the beginning when they weren't sure what we were doing. You know, I remember the family saying, "Well, how are we going to do this? How are you going to tell GRAV's story as a one-person show?" You know, but they're so supportive, and they've seen it so much. They travelled up to Edinburgh last time, so they were here in 2015. They came en masse with family and friends. They also came out to New York. So, you know, their support has been absolutely terrific. And here we are, you know, 7 years later, 113 shows down. It's been translated into Welsh. It's been made into a film. I mean, I think that's probably a wonderful thing, you know, for family and friends of GRAV, to think that, you know, people still have that love for him. They still want to hear his stories.
And they really do. I mean, GRAV's, before my time of interest in rugby, really, but if you had to name iconic Welsh rugby people, GRAV's in probably your top 5 when you start listing them, even now when we've had so much recent success. What is it that makes him such a special person in so many people's hearts?
Yeah, I think it was the man that he was more than anything else, because GRAV would admit himself that there were players you know, who were far better than him, you know, perhaps a bit more skillful than he was. Although, you know, he gets a bit of a rap for that, for being this really tough tackling, hard running centre. But actually, he had good soft hands as well, Grav, and he learnt that from Carwyn James, who worked a lot with him. But yeah, I think it was the man that he was, you know. He was just a terrific guy. I was lucky enough to work with him as an actor. He was a joy to be around. It was always about you, never about him. And if he was ever asked about what else he did, I remember being there when some boys were asking him, you know, oh, have you always been an actor, knowing full well who he was. But he'd say, oh, I used to play a little bit of rugby. You know, he was always like that, you know, never boastful or arrogant, just a very humble man. And as I say, it was always about you, never about him.
And a product of his upbringing?
Yeah, I think so. You know, that area in South Wales that he loved so much, you know, Mynydd y Garreg and going back home all the time, and also, you know, his childhood, and we tell that story in the play, because there were, and I won't give it away, but there was a moment in his young life that I think really affected Grav and stayed with him for the rest of his life. That really influenced him and the person that he became. But yeah, I won't give too much away on that.
Yeah, no, a sad moment. I'm really keen to see how it plays. Now, one of the things that I'm really keen to see, you're no stranger to comedy acting, and I can tell you've got that little edge, that little buzz. Is that important for playing a character like Grav?
Definitely, yeah, because there's a lot of storytelling, you know, and you want to make sure that those stories land, and that's why it's important to have a good crowd in, you know, so you can bounce off them. But yeah, there's some wonderful stories, as I said, the sort of tales from the back of the bus. You know, and he worked with some great people as well, you know, away from the rugby field. I mean, this is a man who worked with Peter O'Toole, and they became great friends as soon as Peter O'Toole realised who he was. He worked with Louis Malle, the French director, and Jeremy Irons and Juliette Binoche. So, you know, he just had some wonderful stories to tell. So, yeah, it is really important that you get those sort of comedy chops out as well. Because I tell you, the great quote, you know, by David Garrick, you know, any fool can play tragedy, but comedy is a damn serious business. And it's right. You know, the words in this play by Owen Thomas, you know, it's written so beautifully. And in the moments of tragedy, you almost just need to let the words do the work. Whereas with the comedy, you have to be able to tell that story. You have to have that timing, you know?
So, 113 shows deep. Is it the crowd that makes it? Is it a bit like maybe being a rugby player, that everyone's fresh? You know, you get the butterflies beforehand. You give yourself a little psych up. You get out on stage. The first few minutes are a settler. Is it very similar, do you think?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. You know, this is not a play where, you know, you can take your eye off the ball or just sort of relax into it. You know, it's a one-person show, so, you know, you have to focus. And there is very much that element still of winding myself up, getting myself ready for it. And, you know, you've got to remember as well that for most people, they're seeing it for the first time. We have had a lot of people come back for this one. They enjoy seeing it time and time again. They like spending a bit of time with Grav, I guess. But most people are seeing it for the first time. So you have to give that, you know, your all. And obviously, you know, I want to do my best for Grav and his family every time I do it.
That is one of the most beautiful answers I think we've ever had. Thank you. That is stunning. I'm interested with theatre, because like a rugby player, you get it wrong, there's going to be a whole lot of people telling you got it wrong. Has there been moments where, hang on, Grav wouldn't have done that, or that's not how Grav? Have you tweaked things as feedback come, or are you pretty confident that the research and the planning you did for it, you've got it down?
Yeah, by and large, I think we're very pleased with the reaction, because you're right, you don't want to get it wrong. He's one of Wales's favourite sons, you know. So when we first did it, I remember that. I remember thinking, you know, this is going to be a big challenge, and if people don't like it, you know, we're up against it here. And, you know, fortunately, here we are, several shows in and tours in, and we're still going strong. The one thing I'd say was, when Mary, Grav's wife, came to see it in Edinburgh, of course, up here, you're much, much closer to the stage. And she just said to me, yeah, those brogues, they're too damaged. They're too scruffy for Grav. He wouldn't have had them. So we've certainly put that right. That was the one thing that came up. But everything else, I hope that we're sort of, we're on top of it.
I love that. It must, I mean, to have Grav's wife come and watch. I mean, she's watching her husband. That must be a huge emotional situation for you and for her.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, I can't believe it. I don't know what that must be like, other than to say that must be really, really hard. But also, I wonder whether there's a comfort there, because I think she can see the reaction of the crowd as well, and the fact that Grav is still loved, and the fact that people still want to hear those stories. But yeah, it must be emotional. It must be tough for her. It must be tough for Manon and Gwennan as well, the two girls. But as I said, their support was amazing. And when we performed it in New York, we were in quite a small room out there as well. And they are incredibly humble. And they said, they didn't want to make a fuss. So they let everyone else go in. The whole audience went in before them. And of course, what happened was the last 3 seats available were the front row, front and center. So there I am, and I could see them, the light spills into the auditorium. So I could see them there, and I could see them squeezing each other's knees and things like this. But that was fantastic, what an experience. And at the end of it, I just, in the when I was taking my bow, I just hugged her. I just hugged Mary. She was right in front of me. I couldn't not, she was right there. So yeah, that's something that will really stay with me.
Theatre, I love this thing I'm doing now, this podcast. It goes out, okay, and I don't know where people listen to it. It does turn out it's not just my mum that listens. And I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, I listened to this," but I don't get the reaction until I bump into someone. Being in theatre, it's like scoring the try, kicking the goal. The reaction is immediate.
Yeah.
Is that must be a huge buzz for you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's terrific, and it's why you do it almost. It's to get that reaction, and yeah, playing off the crowd. And when you get a good reaction to a story, that sort of, it lifts you, it spurs you on. So yeah, hopefully we'll get a good crowd in over the month, and we'll be able to tell this story several times. And yeah, as you say, it's a great feeling to have. And also the brilliant way that this is written is that we go from Grav's high moments and laugh out loud moments to despair within a minute and a half, perhaps. I know in the second half, there is a moment where I go from up here to here, and it happens very quickly. And to hear the audience reaction, sort of belly laughing at one story, and then you can hear a pin drop within 90 seconds is incredible. It's a wonderful thing to play. And it's also, it proves the cleverness of the writing and also the direction by Peter Doran at the torch. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have a good team behind me as well.
It's a huge power, isn't it, to have those people just hanging on. Here I'm going to make you laugh, and now I'm going to make you sad and worried. And is there? I mean, to me, this is, yes, it's about Grav. It's, lots of rugby people will come and watch it. Lots of people with nostalgia and maybe hoping for that era of another time. But it's important to tell these stories. If I read about Grav on the internet, a lot of it is those high moments you've spoken about, playing for Wales, the love of his club, playing for the Lions, acting, meeting all those people you've named. I mean, as an actor, working with Peter O'Toole. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But it's important to know that it's not always those high points. There's a bigger thing to this, isn't there?
Absolutely, and that's what makes it such a successful play, I think, is that it is a universal story. It's the relationship between a boy and his mum, and also his father. And that's what really is at the heart of it. We're delighted that people come to see this show from rugby clubs, not a traditional theatre crowd, perhaps. And we know that, hundreds, if not maybe thousands now have come to see this show who do not regularly go to the theatre. They come because of GRAV, they come because of the story. But also what's equally lovely is when you go to somewhere like America or London or Edinburgh, and it happened here last time, that someone would come up and say after the show, I had no idea who he was. I have no interest in rugby, but I loved the story. And that's really, really heartwarming for us, if you like, because, it stands as a story then. It's not just about a former Welsh rugby international who then became a very successful actor and presenter. The story is strong enough.
Is that what made you brave, or was it brave to take it to New York? I mean, a play about a Welsh rugby guy in New York, that, to me, that sounds almost ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. And, I wasn't going to turn that down. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was fantastic and I loved it. And, there's a big Welsh community in New York, so they supported it. They came out to support. Although we scheduled a matinee performance and it clashed because of the time difference. It clashed with a Wales rugby international on the same day. So I was doing this matinee to basically a man and his dog, and wanting to be watching the game. But no, we were well supported out there by the Welsh community, but also Americans then who came, had heard about it. And it was a risk, of course, but they loved it.
That's amazing. I love that. These little things that can make a big difference. Has there been anybody in the audience where you've gone, oh my God, can't believe they're here?
Well, I guess, as we've mentioned, I've performed it to a lot of people. It's always special to do it for Mari, Manon and Gwennan. Gareth Edwards has seen it and JPR has seen it. People like this up here last time, lovely moment. The Hastings brothers have now seen it, but lovely moment after I performed where the stage manager came back and said, oh, Gar, there's someone on stage who wants to say hello to you. And I walk out and there's this fairly elderly man, probably late 60s, and sort of tears in his eyes. And he said, I'm Jim Rennick. And I went, oh, yeah, of course you are, of course. And he just said, that was great. I didn't have a chance to say goodbye to him. And that will stay with me. That was terrific. But the other
Stop it! You've just given me goosebumps down the back of my neck because I know Jim and he's some man. Yeah, that would have meant a lot to somebody like Jim. That's amazing.
It was pretty special for me too, to hear him say that. And as I say, tears in his eyes, saying I never got the chance to say goodbye. They would have toured together. They would have played with, against each other. That was special. But the other one that I should mention was that I was invited to perform it in the away changing room of the National Stadium on the Monday night before Wales played England. And I performed it for the Welsh rugby squad and coaches. And that was a hell of an experience, because everyone in that room, they're all famous. They're all heroes of yours. I walk out and I'm thinking, right, just do a normal performance, just focus, just go through your routine, your warm up, all of that. And I walk out, look up, and in the second row, you've got Warren Gatland and Sean Edwards and Alan Wynne-Jones, Ken Owens and George North. And it's like, oh, okay, here we go. This is going to be a bit special. So, yeah. And Wales went on to beat England, and there was a fair bit said in the press about the fact that Wales did a warm-up with me, doing a performance for them, and England had John Terry speaking to them so that, there was no contest, So that was all really nice. That's the only time that I've ever been in the same sentence as John Terry, thank God. But yeah, that was very, very special.
It's amazing. I'm reading a book just now called Belonging about how you make people feel part of something, and a lot of it is storytelling, which obviously you are, well, a professional at. I can imagine there being a conversation, right? Let's get them to watch GRAV. Let's educate these boys into things that have gone before them.
Yeah, it came about as well because Robbie McBride, who was a big friend of Grav's, they knew each other very well, and they had links through the Eisteddfod in Wales. Both performed sword bearer, and Robin took over when Grav had his operation on his leg. So Robin came to see it in Llanelli, and afterwards he said to me, "Oh, I'd like you to do this for the Welsh squad." And of course, you just think, "Oh, yeah, that's never going to happen." But true to his word, they got in touch and they said, "Yeah, we want you to do it, and we want you to do it in the lead up to the England game." And that's it. It was just, I'm never going to play for Wales. That's gone. That dream ended when I was about 14. Playing for Wales. So the closest thing that I can do is perform for them the rugby story of Ray Gravel in the lead up to the England game. It was just so special. It was, I'll never forget that. And then to hear, I heard from one of the coaching staff that Warren Gatland the following day used a quote from the play. There's this moment where Carwyn James says to them, you've got to look not just at your opponent's strengths, but you've got to think about what their weaknesses are. And apparently he went around the squad and asked every one of them to think of their opponent's weaknesses. Sounds like an obvious thing, doesn't it? But when you hear that it came directly from the play, yeah, that was pretty special as well.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Now, I'm desperate keen to ask this question. Grav is from where in Wales? Played for who?
So Mynydd y Garreg, Grav is from.
And he played for?
Llanelli.
You're from?
Yeah, I'm from the Swansea Valley. And was
come on, there must have been some grief about a Swansea man playing some.
I know, and people still to this day take a mick out of that, and I can only say that I hope that Grav would forgive me.
Yeah, it's one of those little things. It's a bit, if I was to play Jim Rennick in the story of his life, I'm from just up the road, a big rival Jim's. He gives me a hard time for it. I deliberately wore a maroon jacket to a Hoyk lunch where I was speaking, and I was sitting next to Jim, and just very subtly he said to me, "I didn't think much of your jacket, son." And I just thought, yeah, there's bound to have been some niggle there. Gareth, you're a busy man. I've absolutely loved speaking to you. It's a huge honour for me. I'm really excited to go and see GRAV. The tickets are available at gildedballoon.co.uk. Give us a plug. Go for it. The stage is literally yours.
Well, it's stood the test of time. It's been here before, sold out, and as I've already mentioned, it's not a rugby story really. It's just a story of a remarkable man who lived a fantastic life and tragically left us at the age of 56. But it's an uplifting and heartwarming story as well.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it. Gareth, it's been a huge honour to speak to you. I'm hoping I get to bump into you as you wander around Edinburgh, soaking it all up, and maybe we can meet and have a coffee and chew the fat. But in the meantime, all the best for the run. I've no doubt it's going to go well. I'm excited to see it myself, and I look forward to seeing you.
Great. Hey, nice one. Thanks a lot. Lovely chatting to you.
Awesome. Thank you. How good was that? I cannot wait to see it. The story of Ray Grav, played by Gareth J Bale. He's performed it for the great and the good in some pretty interesting places, and he's in Edinburgh for the whole of August. If you want, come with me. It looks like I'm going on my own, but it sounds like I might go more than once too. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, you can catch it on Apple, Acast and Spotify. You can watch on YouTube and Facebook. Tell your friends, leave us a review, and make sure we spread the word. My name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon.